This meeting is called to order. Welcome, everyone. And just for housekeeping, of course, your captions you'll find at the bottom for CC button. And you can always raise your hand. I will promise to try to notice if someone has a hand raised. If you have a question, if you have any technical difficulties, typing something in the chat would be another good possibility. And I don't necessarily mind being interrupted. We're fairly casual here. But I do ask that if you have something substantial to say, you raise your hand and I'll get to you and call on you. Thanks. So welcome to the January edition of the Disability Caucus monthly meeting. We're excited to hear from more of our endorsed candidates tonight. Later, we'll be talking with Kimberly Graham, Deb Vandergast, and Shelley Servadio Elias about their plans for the year. We will be able to vote any possible business tonight that we have. I don't have any planned, but because we have quorum, we do have that possibility. And I'm going to, let's see, all of us are members right now, but I do have in the Facebook discussion group saved links, a link to our membership application. If there's anyone that you would like to invite to our caucus, you could always find the link there on our Facebook disability discussion group, or email me and I can send it to you. It's just an easy Google form. I'm going to go right into our chair's report. I've got quite a few updates that are state central committee related, so it's probably a good thing our activity over the holiday was pretty low. I enjoyed some downtime thinking about new work for an art exhibition that I have next November. And I have to constantly remind myself that this is happening. It's, think about all the pieces that have to come together for that. I'm also job hunting. We will be elected a new chair, the January 28th SCC meeting. So far, 2 people have officially announced. That's Bob Cross and Brittany Ruland. There's a possibility of Rita Hart jumping in, and I will explain that in a little bit. Obviously, with Ross Wilbur not running again, the feeling is that the party needs to embrace a solid direction and plan to fight back against the red wave in Iowa. Long story short, not everyone agrees on how we can do that. I'm sure lots of people have thoughts, anything from we need to engage our rural voters more. Yeah, lots of things. So you may already know that Bob Cross is the current vice chair of Veterans Caucus, and I think he's been a chair in the past. He's also been an Iowa representative in the 1970s, and he's been involved in transportation planning and administration. And he also ran for the US Senate in the primary, against Grassley's seat, but he didn't win the primary. And I think, anyway, and Brittany Ruland, who also has announced that she's running, she's a Bernie Sanders campaign alumni, a field director in Iowa and then in Idaho. And she recently managed Sarah True Garrett's campaign. And she brings credibility as a grassroots organizer with some impressive experience and knowledge of winning races. And I had the opportunity to talk with her last week. Thank you, Shelley. Bob's the chair of Yvette's. Oh, he is. Oh, okay. James Barron has appeared so many times on the SCC that I thought he was the chair. Thanks for that correction. So with Rita Hart's possible candidacy for chair. It depends on something. Currently, SEC members have been approached by various people and asked to support an amendment to bylaws at the January 28th meeting. The bylaws would put in place a steering committee of 9 people to guide the IDP, and these are all voting members. They include elected officials, Auditor Rob Sand, House Minority Leader Jennifer Converst, Zach Walls of Senate Democrats, the outgoing chair, Ross, the incoming chair, whoever that may be, and 4 SCC members elected to represent congressional districts. I believe the idea is that the party needs to act more nimbly and quickly, and that is a solution of fewer people making decisions that may help. My opinion is that this is one idea, that we need to be careful not to limit the SEC powers that constitute the governing body of the IDP. And we also need to be careful not to tie up the incoming chair's hands as far as leadership and vision goes. It's in very rough condition right now, I think. This bylaw could have more amendments added to it, changes. They're getting feedback from various people right now, and I will certainly be weighing in on lots of it. If this bylaw plan does pass at the meeting, Rita Hart has said that she will be running for chair, and I guess she'll announce it then if this passes. So I guess without it, she feels that the job would be too difficult to turn our party around and start having wins. And before I ask for more questions on that, a bit more news with the SEC. Happy to say that 2 new constituency caucuses were created at the 2022 Iowa Democratic Party convention this past summer, the Arab American Caucus and the Climate Change and Environmental Caucus. And Shelley Servideo Elias is the founder of the latter. Despite this, we still don't have leadership for them. And I have joined with a few others in calling for elections to happen quickly. The caucus founders were told by Ross that they would not be able to hold elections until first quarter 2024, which is when the new constituency caucus convention with elections will be. We had an amendment also on that. However, there exists in our IDP constitution a provision for vacancies. And all that is required is to have a meeting with at least 5 days notice that elections are taking place and do the election according to the rules. A vacancy, because a caucus formed under previous rules has still not been allowed and has still not been allowed an election, is still a vacancy under the definition. So with that in mind, we're collecting signatures of activists in support of this. Our initial meeting, which I hosted, had 52 attendees, including some pretty high-profile climate activists in Iowa that are invested in this. Our plan is to have elections on January 20th over Zoom and ask for ratification from the SEC at some point. So as you can imagine, none of these activists really want to wait until 2024. And many people I've talked to on the SEC and looking at the Constitution have said this interpretation can't stand. It looks like we can have our elections from these caucuses. We should get them in place. Apparently, John DeBeat has been waiting quite some time for Arab American Caucus to come together, and he's done organizing for years to make it happen. So I think that we have support from the body of the SEC to legitimize elections. And that's what I'm working on. If you're interested in supporting this by signing the letter, I'm happy to forward you that email. And you don't have to say you're going to join the caucus necessarily, but any support we can get, any signatures we can get that say, yes, we should be putting these we should have the elected leadership in these caucuses that were formed last summer. We shouldn't wait. If you support that, I am happy to send you that letter of intent to hold elections. And my goal is to send the call for election out Friday at the latest. So now I have a opportunity for questions on any of that what I was just talking about. And if you want me to send the letter to you, just let me know. And I'm going to take a look at the chat here.
Yes, please send a letter out to me as well.
Okay, I'll send the letter to you and also to you, Garrett. Okay. Anyone else interested in deciding in support of these two caucuses? Madeline, let me write all this down. Look at my like tiny post-it notes I found. And okay, Cassie too. And all right, awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure so far to work on making this climate caucus happen, and I think we feel pretty confident that it will. Shelley's got an awesome charter, and Rob Hogue has an awesome action plan, which has tons of good ideas in it that any caucus can use too. Okay, anything questions about what I was talking about with SEC and that kind of thing? Let them figure it out, right? Pretty much. Since we don't have a Kimberly Graham on yet, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce Deb Vandergast and have something written up for that. Deb Vandergast is a member of our caucus and has such a long resume in disability issues. I don't think I could do a proper introduction in a few lines. I've heard about her early experience at Camp Courageous, the camp for kids with disabilities, her adaptive daycare business that served children with disabilities in the Tipton area, to being featured as a disability issues expert by national media, including Time magazine, on her adaptive daycare closing this past summer. Thank you, Deb, for being here tonight. What can you tell us about your current focus and plans?
Well, I got one more on my resume now. I'm a child care nurse consultant for Johnson County Public Health. And part of that role is helping daycares to write care plans and adapt to the needs of children with special needs, and to help them to write the requests for the funding for that care. So continuing my work. So yeah, as the story is with many Democratic candidates, did not win, but I really felt it was a good campaign. And despite not having a massive budget like the big statewide and national candidates, in my district got nearly as many votes as them. So it really wasn't about the fundraising. Unfortunately, I feel like it really wasn't even about the candidates. It just people were voting party lines, and as typical, Democrats are not good at turnout at midterm elections. So I'm not letting it discourage me. I plan to run again. As I said before, I'm not sure, if I'll run for the Senate again or what else. It really will depend on the political tides in Iowa. I can't quit my job and go for broke if there's no chance of winning. And we don't have public campaign financing. So if you are not independently wealthy, it's hard to run. And that's a sad fact. But I do have my sights on it upcoming because I spent time with my family in December, took a vacation, and came back to discover my own city government in shambles. And all with the person in my ward who's on the council having a personal vendetta that nearly cost the city $100,000. And I was going to run against this guy when he first got elected a decade ago, but I thought I needed surgery. So I dropped out of the race just to find out I didn't need the surgery. So I think it's time I run against him because we need some things fixed in our community too. We need to ensure we have affordable housing so that we have a workforce. We're a rural community. Nobody's going to commute to our community to work in our mom and pop shops and our little restaurants and fast food places and daycares. So if people can't find housing to live here, they move away and they take their children with them and our school enrollment drops. And at a time when our governor's wanting to take even more money away from our schools to lose more kids from our school districts are already struggling. 3 of them in my county because of dropping enrollment already weren't going to get any additional funding this school year. Let's now give money for them to go to private schools. And they won't be most likely be going to private schools in our county. We have one tiny one. They'll go with their parents and commute to the city. So in so many ways, it hurts our communities. So I decided that, yes, I can make an impact on these big issues on a local level. And while doing that, build up the trust of my community so that when I'm ready to run for a statewide or state office again, I've got a better chance at it. I'm not starting from zero. And no matter what I choose to do, hey, I've already got all the signs. I've got all the contact lists. I've got supporters now, and I've got a heck of a social media following. So next time I don't start from scratch, but I really think that we've got to get our state party and our national party to stop ignoring our rural areas. That's killing us. And, we can't rely on the Mississippi River community cities anymore because what's happening as Iowa and Illinois' political divide becomes wider, people are actually moving across the river, staying basically in the same community. They're shopping in the same stores, working at the same businesses, seeing the same friends. They've just moved to a political climate that suits them. So that's caused the Quad Cities, Scott County, to turn red. And that was one of our reliably blue areas. And from what I heard from a reporter, it's happening all the way up and down the Mississippi when there's communities on both sides of the river. So if we keep relying on our urban areas, we're going to go further down. We've got to figure out how to talk to our rural communities, how to connect, not just throw mailers and ads at them, but to really connect. So working with county parties to do something that the Republicans have been doing for a long time. Connect with people all the time, not just election years. Not just pop out and say, give us money, volunteer, and vote for me. Go and give something back to the community, build their trust, really talk. Go in there when it's not all the political noise. So we're doing things like starting banned book clubs. And Muscatine County Democrats had a wonderful idea for the Liberal Gun Owners Club. And they've had a lot of interest in it, just for people to talk about common sense gun laws and gun safety and break the myth that Democrats hate guns. Now, we would hate irresponsible gun ownership. We hate guns that are purely meant to kill people in masses, but we don't hate responsible gun owners. We want our kids to be safe. We want our schools to be safe. We want our communities to be safe, not to just take everybody's guns away like we've been painted. And that's part of the problem, is that the tactics that's been used against us as candidates and as a party is to dehumanize us, label us, those, those horrible liberals, those whatever, and I think that to overcome that, we need to start rehumanizing ourselves, reconnecting as people with people in our communities. Another fun one, an idea, somebody on his chat is doing some cross stitch, a group called, for people who do needlework, get together, have coffee, talk politics, and call it stitches and bitches. So I challenge anybody in your own counties, do some of this stuff, create groups that can create ongoing engagement that connect with the people face to face, and not just, hello, it's election year, we want your money and your votes. So, and of course, we're also working on countering with multiple groups, which you're also been involved in, Julie, is to counter the Republican messaging machine between Fox News and AM radio, and getting some podcast channels, 24-hour channels, that maybe people while they're working or driving a truck or a tractor can listen to that instead of the angry AM talk radio or Fox News. You know, that trying to be sharing progressive ideas without being overtly partisan, so that we can draw in more of those moderates and no party people, instead of just preaching to the choir. So lots of people brainstorming on lots of levels, and that one's a multi-state effort. Because unfortunately, what's the reality is the national party has abandoned us in rural areas. So we've got to figure it out, and hopefully whoever leads our state party will be there on that initiative.
Thanks, Deb. What you were talking about was a streaming radio network that you joined and I joined to try to help something happen, even though I have absolutely no clue. I don't even listen to podcasts, okay? But I am down for media reaching the people that it needs to reach. And it's really actually exciting because one of the other members of this group so far, and if you're interested, I am happy to invite you to the Discord server where we talk about rural streaming radio and come up with pitches to say, yes, I want to interview this person who has a rural issue that they want to talk about. And, you know, there's like tons of ideas that could easily become the focus of a radio pod. Someone coming in. So, yes, let me know if anyone wants to be added to the Discord server for this rural streaming radio network. It's an opportunity to be a voice, and especially I would love to have some disability voices, and I would love to create something where we are talking about, you know, different issues that people with disabilities in rural areas especially face. And this goes nonpartisan. This goes just human life and experience and what it's like to live in Iowa or any Midwest state in the rural areas. So don't think anything is off topic, really. Whatever is your experience, you can speak it. And that's kind of one of the citizen journalist type ideas that this radio streaming network has. So I think it would be really cool. And I'm working out like what I can add to it. Besides I have a logo that I'm working on for it. We just said hello to Carolyn, and Mickey's coming in just now. So anyway, thank you very much, Deb, for speaking on your campaign, how that went, and current focus. We definitely need to be calling the legislators this week on the school vouchers. Definitely. So if you haven't done it yet, make your phone call at least once this week. Call your legislators and say no to the school vouchers. Does anyone have any questions for Deb on what she was talking about? Actually, I do have a question for you. I would like, what I'm trying to work on is ideas from our endorsed candidates to have action items. One action item I just mentioned, obviously, call your legislator on the school voucher. But are there things coming up that you know of, Deb, that you're gonna wanna act on after the voucher thing, a particular focus that we could help you with.
I'm still digging into it, trying to learn more, but there was a bill proposed already this week to change school board elections to make them partisan, and also to limit out-of-state individual donors in legislative races, but not statewide or national races. Not to limit, PACs and super PACs, just to limit out-of-state individual donors. I think they didn't like that my mom donated to me. I don't know.
To me, that says that there's possibly a lot of individual donors that might do $27 or another small dollar donation,
Mhm.
where activists that know each other in other states and want to help each other win their races would have a barrier like that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
the
so
other
not sure
thing-
what's behind that, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on. It sounds nefarious.
Mhm. And the partisan school board races would just divide us even further.
Right. And it was something about to do with municipal races too, and having primaries. So I'm not sure what their angle is on that, how they think that's going to give them an advantage, I'm sure. Why the justification for these? I have not heard yet.
Mhm. Well, feel free to give us an update when you finish doing your digging on those topics, and let us know what we can do. And I'm willing to put together graphics and like a little action alert thing that I've done before in the past.
All right. Well, anyone who's curious to look on my Twitter and Facebook campaign pages, which now they obviously just say for Iowa or for democracy. I did put a link to a list of the bills already introduced this week. So,
Okay, good. I'm glad that we can depend on you for quite a bit of information. You've been top notch at the social media.
Yeah.
If anyone, I would say you need to write your Twitter handle in the chat.
At Deb Cares for Iowa.
And apparently we lost Shelley for a minute.
That also works on Facebook. That also is my website.
Good idea. Does anyone else have a question for Deb?
I'm going to sneak away for a second because I have to show you an Iowa t-shirt I just got in the mail today.
Okay. All right, well,
Julie,
should be right back.
Julie,
Yes.
before you go on, you mentioned the school voucher issue. And if you are calling or writing your legislators or the chairman of the Ed Reform Committee or whatever, Jennifer Confrest is the ranking Democrat on the Educational Reform Committee. And she asked that people contact her saying who they have contacted, because they'll stand up and say, well, nobody else is against this. And she can say, well, gosh, you had X number of people contact you. So send her a copy as you're contacting your legislators. And that would be a good move anytime you connect with your legislator, is to find the ranking Democrat on their party and also contact, or on that committee, and also contact them.
Good suggestion. So the reason why I had to show you this was this goes with the theme of my campaign. All we've got left for Iowa is a butter cow and a bunch of pigs.
I could read it. Things Iowa are known for: crossed out small family farms, crossed out best public schools of the nation, crossed out moderate politics, crossed out the caucuses, but known for one butter cow and 25 million pigs, and Reagan.
Reagan t-shirt.
It's awesome.
Yeah, because it's not the same Iowa it used to be when I moved here.
So Julie, you were saying that Jennifer Converse would like to keep a record of how many people have contacted their legislators, right? And so when you send it to your legislator, also copy your email to Jennifer and email her, I guess, if you called them to.
Yeah.
That's a good idea because that's accountability and how many people have been making phone calls. Let's get her email address. Does anyone have that handy? I could take a second to look it up. Or we could send it out. Julie's, you're on mute still. Does the switchboard keep count? Don't you think they would? Yeah, or the office that the switchboard goes to keeps the count, right?
That I don't know.
Um,
They may keep count of who got a call, but maybe not of what it was about. I don't know. She had just was, I don't know, on some kind of Zoom the other day and requested that information.
I think that I will probably email everyone Jennifer Converse email. I'll make a little bit of a, plug to our caucus to do your calls to legislators this week and put that on Facebook as well and provide Jennifer's email so that we can have that accountability, extra accountability. So thank you very much, Julie, for that. And I'm actually welcoming Kimberly Graham to our meeting right now. Thanks, Kimberly, for coming. Hi. I would like to go ahead and introduce Shelley right now, and I've written something up for that. This is my friend and colleague, Shelley Servideo Elias, who is a former Veterans Caucus Chair and candidate for H96 in Muscatine. She's a disabled vet, a retired registered nurse, and medical cannabis advocate who helped pass the Iowa Hemp Act and wrote the Veterans in Crisis Care Act. Thanks for being here tonight. And can you talk a little bit about your immediate plans as far as this legislation session?
Hi, good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me. I'm Shelley Servideo Elias. So what we have coming up next Wednesday is Vets Day on the Hill. I go every year, and I'm trying to think about an omnibus bill that's like a list of key things that veterans have been trying to work on and get passed for several years. And I think the reason we need to do it that way is if you put everything together and throw everything at the wall and see what sticks kind of approach, it's a lot harder to get a hard no when you get everything together in a ball. Because right now what they do is they separate everything out into little tiny bills where they can easily say no in a committee and kill it, and then the veterans get nothing. So I want to have a different approach. So I'm working on a legislative agenda right now. I have talked to Rep. Brian Meyer, and he's willing to sponsor us if we get a nice little list of what we want. So one of the biggest priorities that we have is getting the home program fully funded. So they've chronically appropriated it $2 million, but the Iowa Finance Authority says that they're out of money for the home program by March or April of every year. And to fully fund it, we need to be closer to $5 million. So Mark Lofgren wrote a bill, and it says $500,000. So I read that and I was like, what? So I called him, and he called me right back, and he was like, no, I'm trying to add another $500,000 so that we could be at 2.5 million. And I thanked him, and I was like, well, that's good. But the way it reads is 500,000. Need to fix this. So I've been talking to a lobbyist that I work for, Bruce Beeston, or I don't work for, but I work with, for veterans rather. And he said that the veterans community all around is very unhappy about Mark Lofgren's bill. And because he has no source of funding for it, it's just like a test balloon. And there's no way to get something like that passed. You got to be like, this money's coming from here. So what we really want to do is increase the money going to every county for the veteran service officers to do the PACT Act and the increased workload and the amount of training that they need to accurately process that workload and make sure that veterans get the benefit and the appointments and the things that they need that they're now entitled to under the new law. So a new law that passes at the federal level is going to increase the amount of work and help that a veteran needs at their hometown level. And your states are responsible for sending money to each county so that each county can pay their veteran service officer. And so our state has to appropriate that money. So that's the kind of thing I go to the Capitol and advocate for Vets Stay on the Hill. I'm a county vets in Muscatine County. I'm on the Board of Commissioners for the veterans in my county. So I go to monthly meetings and I work to help serve my local veterans too. So I listen to what the veterans are saying and what they need, and then I take that as well with me to the legislators. So it's where actual veterans need intersect at the county, to the state, to the federal level, and how all those different wheels spin and who has to come up with the money to fund what. That has to get hashed out, because if they don't and they refuse to fund, even if President Biden is saying, this is what I want done, if our local GOP refuses to adequately fund the local resources that need it, it makes it very difficult for our veterans to get the help that they need. And then we won't have our veterans in this state. We have almost 200,000 veterans in our state. It'll be harder for them to access adequate resources or file appropriately. So it's really our responsibility to advocate for those who have the least amount of voice, who are very sick, with cancer, that they've got Agent Orange exposures, chemical exposures. So they really need us to stick up for them and make sure they get the help that's needed. So that's my immediate plans to go do that. I don't know how successful I'll be. I'm sure there's going to be lots of organizations at the Capitol on that day, and they probably all want the same things. In previous years, I've partnered and done bipartisan legislative agenda where we all got together, all the different groups, and we hammered out one agenda that we presented to the legislators, where we were all on the same page and we all agreed and did the same thing. Actually, that was last year that we did that. And then it went all the way up to Pat Grassley, and then he refused. I mean, made it through committee, everything went well, we got traction. But then when it came time to pull everything out for a vote at the end of the session, Grassley just refused to bring anything out and let it have votes, and he just killed everything. So this year we just have to start from scratch. So that approach, which took a lot of effort and work, which I was really hopeful, because it was all of us, we threaded the needle and went to work together. We all lobbied for the exact same thing. It still wasn't good enough to get something passed through the GOP. So this year I'm not going to do that again, because it was a lot of time and effort and it was a waste. So it didn't work. So I think at this point in time, you just have to have a new strategy. And I think the best way to do it is get everything together in an omnibus bill, let them carve and pick away at anything they think is the smalls. And then the biggest issues are the bones of what's left. Politically, it's really hard to say no to very pressing veterans issues that most people agree with, and that might exert enough political pressure on them to bring something to a vote. So we might at least get a couple of things. So that's going to be my approach. So that's my immediate plan for veterans, because I am the SCC provisional chair for Vet Caucus, and I will still work with Bob Kraus and James Marin, and the VVA lobbyist Bruce Beeston, who works with our caucus at the Capitol. So I'll be doing that. That isn't going anywhere.
Which
But
day is that on the Hill that you were referencing?
That's Wednesday, the 18th of January. And normally the Veterans Caucus plans a state caucus meeting when we have Vets Day on the Hill, but our chair or vice chair has not organized or called that meeting yet, as far as I know. When I was state chair, because the attack of the Capitol January 6th and the heavy security and threat of attack on our state capitol, I did not organize a meeting. I just went by myself and had our caucus stay home. And then I remoted out to them with Bob. And we just did a very small meeting from the Capitol and then remoted it and did hybrid out for people to sign into. And then another year it was COVID. It was really bad. It was dangerous. So I just masked up and I went, and then I gave a report to my caucus on how the day went and what was done. And they pre-approved the legislative agenda that I took. So they were with part of it. So, but this is a different chair. I'm not the chair. But I am our legislative liaison person, so I can go do that. So
Feel free to send me information on the day of activity, day of activism on the Hill, the 18th. There's
yeah, I have a feeling I might be by myself a little bit. Mr. Marin still, his wife passed away recently, and I think he's still grieving. And so I'm happy to go up there, and if the fellows can't go up, then I'll just go. It's okay. We're a team. We all want the same stuff. It's all right. So
thanks.
yeah.
Does anyone have a question for Shelley on what she just talked about?
Are there any other disabled veterans here that has something that I can help with, or that I didn't talk about, that I'm missing? Okay.
Well, thanks. I would like to introduce Kimberly Graham next.
Did you want me to talk about the climate caucus later after this?
Sorry?
When do you want me to talk about the climate caucus?
I'll get back to that.
Okay.
Right now, I'm going to go ahead with my introduction. It's my pleasure
Thank you.
to introduce Kimberly Graham. Her campaign focused on prioritizing the prosecution of violent crimes over lower level nonviolent offenses, as well as treating drug addiction and mental health problems as a public health issue. And she was even endorsed by the musician and activist John Legend. Here's what our endorsement said, however. Kimberly plans to use her office to enact broad justice reform and eradicate biases and dangerous and unfair treatment against people with disabilities like mental illnesses, who are incarcerated at disproportionately higher rates. And we look forward to hearing your plans, Kimberly, and how we might help.
Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. Hi, Mickey. How are you? Hey, Tucker. Hey, Garrett. People that I've met in person. Michelle, everyone. I've been on the job for 1 week today. I was sworn in last Tuesday, and it's been quite a week. kind of for fun, I've decided to put, when I leave the office every day, I record at the top of my calendar how many hours I was there. And it went like this: 8, 9, 10, 11. Not a sustainable pattern, but anyway, there's way more than enough work to be done. So, and I've never bored, which is awesome. So I'll just kind of go through a couple of the things that we've been able to do in the last week, or things that I've been able to do in particular. It's been a really good first week. The first thing that we did was we started our policy for requesting release on their own recognizance for folks that have been arrested and are being put in the jail for a low-level nonviolent offense where there's no victim. So something like driving while barred, or theft fifth, which is a low-level theft, things like that. We don't have the power to change the bail policy. That's the purview of the legislators, but we can request that somebody be released on their own recognizance. And in the past, the Polk County Attorney's Office has pretty much always just said that they're requesting bond according to the bond schedule. So this is a very, very new thing for the county attorney's office to be requesting that people be released on their own recognizance. And over this past weekend at jail court, the assistant county attorney who was staffing the jail over the weekend said that the judge who was on duty did follow our recommendations a good deal of the time. And I don't have the data yet for when she deviated or made an exception, why. So that's data I'll get over time, but sounds like for the most part that she was willing to do that. And then we have the judges rotate in and out of the jail, their jail duties I think it's every 3 months. I could be wrong about that. But the one that's coming on to the, not weekend, but to the full-time Monday through Friday jail court is a former public defender. So I'm very hopeful that she will also be willing to, go along with our requests, at least for the most part. So that's really positive. I've taken a look at our victim services and victim liaison kind of staffing, and have learned that, those folks that do the victim liaison work are busy consistently all the time. And we just don't have enough bodies to do the level of victim services that we would really like to be doing. So, we do the best we can, but I've already talked to one of the people on the board of supervisors who are in, charge of granting us funding, because we're a county office. So the Polk County Board of Supervisors have control over our budget. I've already spoken to one of them and reached out and said, hey, I'd really like to hire create two new positions for victim liaisons. And he has said that he would absolutely vote for that funding. So, and I have no reason to believe that at least the majority of the rest also would support that. I haven't checked with them yet, but so that's something that we plan to ask for here within the next 6 months. There's certain times of the year we can go and request like a new position and new funding. So we plan to do that. And that will also help us increase our diversion and restorative justice programming, which is something that's a big priority for me. Again, we just don't have the person power yet to really have the level of diversion and restorative justice programs that we would like to have. So that will help us do that. Another thing that I did last week was just a little shift of personnel. I moved a very experienced prosecutor. I believe she's got about 10 years of prosecuting sexual assaults in other jurisdictions, but the Polk County Attorney's Office had her on a different docket. She wasn't prosecuting sexual assault, and she really, that's her passion, and she really feels that's her calling. So we shifted her over to the sexual assault docket. So that's going to be great because she's very experienced and she just really feels called to do that kind of work. And there's certain dockets that for me, if we can get it, we need people on those dockets who really feel a calling and really want to be doing that kind of prosecution. And I think sexual assault's one of them, and juvenile court is another one of them. We have a fantastic juvenile division. And I know that because I worked in juvenile court primarily for the last 10, 15 years. And so I've worked on the other side of a lot of those assistant county attorneys, and they're a really good group. Last week, I also had in front of me a decision to whether or not to waive a 17-year-old to adult court. There were actually two cases that I asked to be informed about any pending waivers to adult court, and two were brought to me last week. One was, they were both 17-year-olds. One had an extensive criminal history already, and it's a very lengthy discussion about how much and what kind of services we can provide to a young person in juvenile court versus adult court. Some people think that if they go to adult court, they just get no services, but that's not actually accurate. There's other services that an adult probation office can provide to that younger person. But all this to say, the one young person had multiple second and third and fourth and fifth chances. And so I agreed that he could be waived to adult court. The other young person had never been offered services in juvenile court, had never, been in juvenile court. And this was a first offense for him. And it was a serious offense. I don't want to make light of it. It involved a firearm. He didn't shoot anybody. He just possessed a firearm. But I elected not to waive that other young person up to juvenile court for the reasons that he hadn't had other chances. This was a first offense, and I believe that it warranted, trying to work with that young person continually in juvenile court for the next 4 or 5 months until he turns 18. I also went and spoke with him face to face, and I explained to him that I was the one that decided not to send him to adult court, and he better not make me end up on the front page of the Des Moines Register for getting into trouble after I kept him out of adult court. And I told him that I believed in him and I believed he could do it. And I read his whole history, and I read his, academic history, which was really horrible. He has like 2 credits out of 23 to get a high school diploma, and he's 17. And he wants to finish school and all of that. So I had a conversation with him and told him that I thought he could do it, and, prove me right. So hopefully he takes advantage of that chance. And then this week and last week, I assisted Iowa Legal Aid in putting together an expungement clinic. So what that is where somebody has a prior criminal record and they're eligible to have that expunged or completely erased from their record. But it takes a lot of players and a lot of coordination to get that to happen. Usually, in theory, you could do it yourself, but you couldn't. Unless you went to law school or you were a paralegal or something, it's a little difficult to figure out on your own. So Iowa Legal Aid tries to do regular expungement clinics to help these folks. So on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, they're going to do 3 in Des Moines, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and 1 at night at different locations. And they've already pre-screened they have about 100 cases that they're going to be putting through. And so Alex Cornia at Legal Aid reached out to me to see if I could talk to the chief judge, see if they could get these old cases activated in our electronic filing system, because these are old cases that were before our electronic filing system. So the clerk has to go and find the paper file and then turn on the case in the new system. So there's that step that has to happen. And then they asked me if I knew of a judge that could batch, look at these all at one time and sit for an hour or 2 hours and just get them all processed, because they said what happens is they do their work and they get it to a certain point, and then oftentimes they sit there waiting for a judge to look at them. And so I contacted Judge Bill Kelly, who I went to law school with, and said, "Hey, Bill, would you be willing to do this?" And then he said, "Sure, if the chief judge will let me do it." So I contacted the chief judge. So I got it all coordinated. So that'll be happening on Martin Luther King Jr. Day with Alex's and Legal Aid's great help and them really driving this. But I just kind of helped bring all the pieces together so it could happen as efficiently as possible and get it done. So there's probably more, but that's some of the stuff I've been doing in the last week. Oh, and also I was hoping I'd get 5 minutes before I had to deal with an officer involved shooting, but one happened about a week before I took office. So I'm also dealing with that.
Wow, what a fantastic update, Kimberly. You are making good in your first week on many of your promises, and that is just so amazing.
I'm doing my best.
You're putting all the pieces in place, and I understand that you have to do a lot of extra work to make the expunged records program. happen in an efficient manner. That all sounds so wonderful. I would like to open it up if anyone has any questions about, what Kimberly told us about her advocacy happening. I'll open that up to you guys. Okay.
Uh,
Oh, Mickey?
yeah, Kimberly. How are you, girl?
Good, how are you, Mickey?
I'm doing really well. And I am
Good.
so glad you got elected.
Yeah, me too.
I just, you know what? You earned it. You deserved it. Do it.
Thank you. I'm doing my best. It's I know it's definitely not, it's already not all sunshines and glitter rainbows, but there's also so much good that we're able to do. So I'm really excited about the future.
All right. So talk to us about this shooting.
Shelley, you have a question?
I really can't because it's currently still an open investigation.
Okay.
So
You
there
ready
there
to-
will definitely be a time when I can, and I will. And I also have a plan to hold a public town hall after anytime we have this happen, once the investigation is closed, to talk about my decision to either not charge or charge the officer and why I came to that decision. And so there will definitely be all of that information forthcoming, but I can't discuss it while the investigation's open.
And that's okay. But guess what? I trust you. You will do what needs to be done.
Fantastic. The level of accountability that you can model, for other officials, for other people, and what the public should be able to have access to in terms of information, so we don't get so twisted around with opinion. If it comes from the source, like your office, then that is the best thing.
Yep. Yeah.
Shelley, you have a question?
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Good. How are you, Shelley?
I'm good. I'm just so excited about all this because this example that you're setting and the foundation that you're laying, like with these structures and this work, it lays a foundation and it sets precedent, for the other counties. Like, this is how we do this. This is how we can do this. And then keeping track of what you're doing and the results and how it works is also good too, because then you get the data, to show the results. So that's really good too. And I love that you gave that young kid a chance and told him that you believe in him, because sometimes they just need to hear that someone believes in them to spur them to, change their life around. So I'm really grateful that you did that. My question, it has to do with plant crimes and making them like the lowest arresting priority and the lowest prosecuting priority. So like, if you decide, I'm not going to prosecute anything that's under an ounce, simple possession, no intent to distribute, that doesn't necessarily violate Iowa code. It's prosecutorial discretion. Is that something you could do or are thinking about?
My reading of the current Iowa code is that a few years ago, there was some legislation passed that talks about, and I don't have the code section off the top of my head, I should know it, but that says pretty much that if a prosecutor fails to prosecute entire categories of crime, and that hasn't been challenged, so that's all we know is the face of the statute. There's no challenge where the Iowa Supreme Court has been able to say, well, and here's what it means, because we haven't had a challenge yet. So my reading of it, to the best of my ability, is that if I just decide I'm not going to prosecute, pot possession under a certain amount or whatever, that the Iowa legislature can make the argument that they're going to take away funding from all of Polk County because of that. So, but what we have done is we're going to be establishing a more robust diversion program that can result in dismissals of those charges. As far as arresting, Shelley, I'm not the boss of the police. The city is the boss of the police. I don't have any, if they violate the law, of course, then I step in as a prosecutor, but I can't control their policies. I'm not their boss. So I can't control them choosing to arrest or not arrest people. But once it hits my desk or our desks at the Polk County Attorney's Office, we can have, and we already do have, for first-time offenders, we have a diversion program, and it'll be more robust, but I just wanted to get something going where currently, if they bring us a substance abuse evaluation and it says there's no treatment recommendation, then we just dismiss it. That's what we're doing for right now. And again, I want to emphasize that is not, we're going to build a more robust program that will address second offenses and third offenses and may even have different requirements for dismissal that are less onerous. And by that, I mean, a substance abuse evaluation is going to cost money. And I don't like that because I don't want finances to be a barrier to people to get a dismissal. So that's we're going to keep looking at that and tweak it, but it's been a week and I just wanted to get something going immediately, however small it is, in the short term. So, but we've talked to Nick Maybanks in Lynn County. We've asked the Johnson County prosecutor what they're doing over there. They also have some kind of a diversion program or a dismissal capacity where you can get it dismissed or something. Anyway, we're gathering that information. And we'll be creating something, even better, but at least we've got that for now.
I appreciate that because we have such a big racism and bigotry problem with this kind of, we literally have targeting. So I think it's super important that we have some kind of mechanism in place to help ameliorate what has happened here in Iowa and how that disenfranchises people.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I appreciate that you are looking at it, and that's really important. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks so much for clarifying on that. And like I said, I'm just kind of in awe about how you hit the ground running. Very much.
Well, we're trying. We're doing our best. It's just amazing how fast the days go. Like I get there and then pretty much, and then I'm turning around and I'm like, it cannot be 6 p.m. already. but that's all good. And it's all exciting stuff that we're able to accomplish. And it's just, it's just amazing I knew in my head the kind of power that county attorneys have. I know Shelley knows about that. But a lot of folks just still have no idea that the power that a county attorney has to really change the way the justice system looks for a lot of folks. And so it's pretty cool to be there and be able to actually make some of those calls, myself and have that capacity to do it.
Yeah. If you say, this is an opportunity for a trailblazer, I'm going to be that one. So yeah. That's so amazing. And if we as a caucus can assist with anything, you'll let me know, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Possibilities that we can be loud voices on. If something is going on, you need backup, we're backup.
Yeah. And that's something that when things happen, like for example, this officer involved shooting, right? And when I make my decision on that, no matter what my decision is, there's probably going to be some people that aren't happy with it, right? And so it's really valuable if people think maybe they don't like the decision, but they believe I was fair and that I did my best to make the best decision based on the law as it currently exists, right? Within the bounds of what I'm able to do. it's valuable to have supporters and people out there saying, look, maybe you don't like it, but she did her job, like at the end of the day, I can't just say, I'm not going to do my job. Like that's not an option. So, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us, Kimberly. And
Thank you. I would love to stick
Probably.
around, but honestly, I need to go to sleep.
probably, yes, get some rest.
But
Try
it's so
another
good,
day.
so good to see all of you, and thanks for inviting me anytime. Just let me know. And yeah, I'm always willing to talk with you guys, listen to you, and yeah, so just great to see you all, and thanks for all the support. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Well, like I said, I was really impressed with that.
Yeah.
Really hitting the ground running. That's just so wonderful to hear. Looking at our agenda, I have a old business, which I don't really have any old business, and then a new business discussion. So we have until 8:30 if I go by my original agenda, and we have time for a discussion of different things that we might want to bring up. And I think Shelley would like to speak a minute about her climate caucus idea. That's fine with me.
I would be most grateful if you guys would, if you guys are interested in hearing about it.
You want to say
Yeah.
like 5 minutes or so and
Okay.
talk about it?
Do you have the charter, Julie, that you could, are you able to put the charter like over in the chat for people to look at if they want to?
What if I do an email, kind of an update on a couple of things that I want to send out? I would like to send a
Yeah,
couple things
because
out.
so that way I could talk to them about the charter right quick, then they can look at it. So basically I've presented a charter to the new caucus that we formed by a unanimous consent under the authority of the June 2022 State Convention. And in our constitution of the Iowa Democratic Party, the convention, the powers of the convention basically reign supreme. And so when the caucus was approved, it was given the instructions to organize. And under the rules of that convention, organize means go have your elections form. So what we were supposed to do under new business is be able to go form as a group and organize and plan for our meeting, our first meeting, where we could then form as a group and then do a call for election. And I went to the mic to try to tell Ross that at the state convention, but then he just called to adjourn and he didn't let us do anything under new business at our state convention in June in 2022. So I immediately asked him in email, text message, whatever, and in person, if we could appoint a person to be our temporary chair. And I did not hear back from him. So I continued to ask for guidance. I was running for House District 96. I was the Democratic nominee and won my primary, and was moving forward with my campaign. And so I did not take over trying to organize and build the caucus because I had to run for office. And so I was asking for a temporary chair who could take that over. And I asked the State Central Committee and the Iowa Democratic Party to follow the rules of convention and to assist. So didn't really get feedback, assistance, or help. The Arab American Caucus, the Palestinian Caucus, John DeBeat, they basically are going through the same thing. They were already pre-organized and they went right into holding their election, and they were already formed up because they've been going through this for 5 years. So it took me 2 years to get to convention and have the climate caucus finally get on the agenda, finally get the voting, and finally get it voted on at state convention. So it's 2 years it takes to go through the process to get to the point where you get a vote at state convention to form. It's not easy. And John DeBeat, what he went through they blew him off a lot, and it was very hard for him to get the caucus on the agenda and then get SDC to vote on it. The first time he tried, they got tabled and then blocked. So he didn't get it at 2018 or 2020 convention. So this convention was the first time they finally got it all the way to the convention and got it to a vote. So they finally could form. So there's been other people that have tried to start caucuses and they don't make it. They don't get it through the SDC. They can't get it on the agenda, and they almost never make it all the way to the convention. So when you have a convention and you pass rules and amendments to the Constitution, what happens is when you vote on them, they take effect at your next convention. When you pass them, they don't go backwards and change the rules for the convention that you've already had. You don't apply them backwards. So, so we are proceeding. We are doing an election. We're calling for people to come, and we're going to hold an election on January 20th. And whoever wins, we're going to seat on the SCC to be a state chair of the newly formed Climate Caucus. So I've written a charter. It's a structure. It's a founding document for this new Climate Caucus, and it establishes the structure. It establishes congressional district chairs, a chair, a vice chair, a provisional SCC member. It meets all the IDP constitutional requirements of a caucus, a constituency caucus. Constituency caucuses are formed because they represent minority voices, and they represent our platform and stated needs of people who have minority rights and the least amount of voice within our state party. So for the chair of IDP to actively block minority right from taking a seat at the table and having an active vote in the next chair election is not the intent of the body of the convention from state convention of June 2022, where all the delegates voted with unanimous consent. So that's why we're going to move forward. So the charter establishes a steering committee, and the steering committee is like your executive board, and it will be made up of your district, your congressional district chairs, but it also will be made up of people from all of our climate change organizations from around the state, our leaders and our experts and the people who understand the science. And that will create what I called a rapid response team. So when we have emergencies or urgent legislative issues or resolutions that we need to work on, or say there's a crisis here in Iowa that we all need to get together and work on, this steering committee will have the ability to form a rapid response team with all of the membership from all the different organizations, including our membership in the caucus, the registered Democrats, and our state leadership, so that we all work congruently and together. And then they will have the ability with their fundraising to create a PAC, and so that they can, since they all get donations for each organization to fund their nonprofit, but they can create a separate fundraising entity that everybody puts money into to support, train, and run environmental climate change candidates and help fund them as they run for election, help train them, help make sure that all the messaging is the same or pertains to the region that the candidate is running and the specific needs of the region that the candidate is running. So for example, this side of Iowa over here is having drought, but this side of Iowa over here along the river is having floods. So your message will have to be according to what is going on where you live. So you have to also tweak that messaging according to the specific needs of the culture of where somebody is running for office, which is not something that Democrats currently do. And you also have to have solutions based in science that are reasonable and down to a personal level, goals that people can do in their own homes. Like teach people how to do rain gardens, teach people the recycling, the how to do things in their own homes that they can do. But all these little things add up to, when they're done together, significant help at the local level for climate change. Teaching people how to do gardening, plant your own food, grow your own food, community gardening, like all these little things that add up. My son's school, they're doing science experiments, and they've actually figured out how to use the waste food from the lunchroom and how to convert that to taking it to our recycle transfer station. And then they have an energy team that takes that and turns it into energy. So they figured out a way at the junior high to take all their leftover food from lunch and save it, and then take that and turn it into energy at our transfer station.
I
And
have
then
a
they
question
use it.
about
Yeah, so
our
there's a ton of ways, if we're innovative, that the way this climate caucus, individuals from all over Iowa can participate, and we could really grow this, because one of the biggest issues that we face, and that we pull well on, that everybody agrees is real, bipartisan, independents, Republicans, is climate change. And since the Republicans won't address it or work on it, and Democrats will, this is an issue that we can pick up voters and we can win with. So, and plus, it's imperative that we do work on these issues, because we're in a climate change emergency right now. And if we don't address these things, we're looking at our children are not going to have a habitable world to live in. That's we have to address it now. We're out of time, and the changes that we have to make on decreasing the carbon, I
footprint.
think we have to make certain changes by 2030, and we have to have all the changes by 2050. And Iowa's not doing anything. Like we're really not working on anything, except for all the nonprofit agencies that are banging on the drums and saying we have to do this, let's work on this. But legislatively, there's not any movement. So what you have to do is try to get as many people as possible engaged and involved, and what they can do on a personal level in their own home or their own neighborhood or their own city, with public policy at the city council or county level, board of county supervisors, ARPA funds, federal money. Go around what you can't get moved with GOP at the state level, and be innovative and use your imagination, but figure out what are the workarounds and what personal accountability people can have, and how can we change behavior. So the Climate Caucus, it's climate change environmentalists. So in Iowa, we have people that want to preserve prairie. We have people that want to preserve wetlands. We have people that want to have biospheres, or save butterflies. We have people that care about wildlife, our water, our clean air, clean water. We have polluted waterways all over Iowa. The goals that are measurable that we need to set, they're endless. Like there's room for everybody that has a goal or something that matters for them to come in and engage and participate and work on. So I think this is super, super important.
Yeah.
We can work with farmers, we can work with corporations, we've got a corporation, HNI, that's here in my county, that was rated like number 6 in the world because of its culture of being environmentally and sustainability conscious in a corporate culture as a business in their practices and how they behave with their product. So there's room in almost every level of society to work on climate change and environmental goals. So it's a huge opportunity as a new caucus to figure out how can we take all of our talent with all of our individuals that are registered Democrats, that we come from all walks of life. How can we all plug in where we all intersect and implement measurable goals and try to influence and affect positive change
Mhm.
and help drive policy with our behavior, with personal accountability, but also in where we work, where we live, where, you know, in as many places as possible, because we have to be the change that we want to see in the world.
There were
And so
52
that's my
activists
hope.
on this
That's my
meeting.
hope. Yes,
And
and
there
because
was
it's disabled
huge
people,
outpouring of support initially, but I'm waiting for signatures on this.
yeah.
We
And
got
and
like
disabled
7 or
people
so far.
really are affected by climate change when there's emergencies, as Julia's pointed out.
Yeah. Mhm.
The disabled people are just, they suffer tremendously if power goes out, if there's a disaster.
Right.
They're the ones that, like, they can't get dialysis, they need generators, it's hard for them to get people to come to their homes and care for them, to get their nurses to come, to get their meds on time. If roads get out and people can't get to them, they get stranded. It's very hard to get proper transportation or services to help them in their greatest time of need. They're very vulnerable to climate change, and it's really imperative that we
I would-
fight for them, we fight for us, for all of us.
I definitely want to acknowledge that our caucus could very well be involved in this, and I'm going to remember to send that out um, to our entire caucus for signing and involvement. I'm looking over in the chat and I see that Deb has posted something about the climate change needs to speak out against. And I clicked on the link and it's a bill related to public contracts, public fund investing and lending practices with companies that engage in economic boycotts to protect companies that are engaged in fossil fuel-based energy. So seems like,
Is this an anti-union bill?
is that what that,
It's making it so that no public funding can go to a company that refuses to do business against or as a vote with to boycott a company that does guns, ammunition, fossil fuels, logging. It's timber, mining, agriculture, firearms, or ammunition activities. If a company is boycotting and refusing to do business or to provide financial services, then they cannot do any services for the state either.
oh, okay.
But the Supreme Court made the corporations people or whatever, so a
So-
business or a corporation has the right to refuse.
Well,
That was
that's
the
what I was
Supreme
trying
Court
to,
ruling,
I
the
was gonna try and
Glaxo,
say they
whatever.
don't. That they're saying that the state will simply refuse to do business with them.
So the state would not give out contracts to businesses that refuse to work with the ones that are supporting the fossil fuel industry.
Mhm. And the gun
So
industry.
if you want to
and-
divest your funding away from a fossil fuels and put your funding
Yeah,
into
say
green
your-
energy companies instead,
your state retirement account. It lists things like that
the
in it. Read the bill.
IPERS.
IPERS. And there's also I'm now a state employee. There's also a kind of a state version of 401k too. But also read the bill. It goes into detail.
Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when he was refusing for his taxes to go to
Mm-hmm.
pay for Bullet?
Mhm.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, no, there, if
Didn't
you
this
scroll up through the
fight
chat,
already get fought?
I've been looking for bills related to disability, environment, and also the school fund vouchers.
Yeah.
So they're all there in the chat. I've also been putting them over on Twitter and Facebook, although I've got more of them on Twitter.
Mhm.
Who wrote this bill?
SF7.
Well, oh,
This
the
one.
environmental one, I can go look. Hang on.
Is this a Grassley bill?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wonder if this has to do with pipelines.
I had heard some talk of this last year that they were gonna, you know, these woke companies that won't do business with the fossil fuel companies and stuff. Well, then the state's not going to do business with them. They're following through on that
We
threat.
are an anti-pipeline caucus.
Yes, that too. Hang on, I'm right in the middle of posting the change in the child restraint law, but that one's not one that I oppose. I just think people need to be aware of it. So by the way, they're going to change to where children have to be rear seated until their 3rd birthday, and be in some kind of a child seat until their 8th birthday.
Please. Ugh. Well, my
Which-
youngest is 13, so glad that missed him.
Does anyone have any questions for Shelley on the Climate Caucus? Very proud to be working on this with you and trying to move it along. Obviously, I believe that we're going to have the support of most of the FCC. They should see that this should be ratified in the elections.
Yeah,
make
I
those
really
that
hope
are
so.
all
And I
rules.
really hope that we get as many registered Democrats as possible joining the caucus, because it takes all of us to defeat climate change. We need all of us, and all of us can do little things and participate from home. Even if you just start recycling and you just plant a small garden, for butterflies and birds. Like, even if you just do little things that help make it better here, you're doing something, you're participating. And that's a start. Get involved, talk to your neighbors and plant garden in your front yard on your strips. And if everybody did that, then you're helping make your air better in your neighborhood, and you're making sure everybody has, fresh vegetables, which is good for you. It's good for your kids. Let your kids pick a vegetable to grow, and then they learn about how to plant something. They get fresh air and sunshine, and then they get a fresh vegetable to eat. And I mean, things like that, it helps your soil, and it helps decrease soil runoff, because we have a huge problem with soil runoff in Iowa, our topsoil. So, like, the more things that you do to increase the root structure in your dirt, in your yard, with plants, then the less soil runoff that goes into your gutter and into our waterways. And if you're using any kind of treatments on your lawn, any kind of pesticides or poison, then all of that is going into the gutter and going into our rivers. So homeowners are also guilty of this stuff. It's not just farmers. If you got TruGreen coming out to your yard, a couple of times a month, you are also polluting. And so all of us, there's room for all of us to learn and see what can we all do, and then participate in making it better by small changes that we can do ourselves. So we don't need big
Yeah.
laws.
Well, let me double check.
We need to be accountable and make changes ourselves, because we can all participate in making it better. And I think that an approach of education and learning how to be sustainable and regenerative in your own sphere of influence, and teaching your children in the next generation those same lessons, is also important within a caucus, because you can't always be about trying to change everybody else. Sometimes you have to work on yourself too.
Thanks so much, Shelley. We had an open discussion time. And I'm looking at the chat again. We have a
I was
House-
gonna say, your question on that anti-climate bill, it was introduced by Stone, Holt, Wheeler, Collins, Moore, Janeri, Vundren, Fisher, Dunwell, Meggers, Wolf, Shipley, Bradley, Holding, Graber, Johnson, DOA, Momsen, a couple of the Scott County people there. Bowden, oh, look,
Bondren's new.
Kaufman, Fry, Andrews, Thompson, Henderson, Wood, Hora, Osmondson, yeah, Grassley, Bossman, and Gerald.
Well, since Grassley signed it, he'll bring it out to the floor for a reading, assignment to a committee, and voting, because he's the speaker. Bondren just got elected. He's new. He doesn't have any power yet. My husband used to work with him at TAG. Holt, he's the Marine and a veteran. He's one of the most extreme. I thought Wheeler disappeared. Is he gone? Or is he still there? Don't know about him. Kaufman, we all know.
Yeah, I know. Oh, so
Winshittle. Winshittle is a blowhard with a temper, and he goes from 0 to extreme in about 60 seconds. And he likes to show that off. Has a beard, does the whole evangelical act pretty good.
so
I
we're
don't
gonna-
know.
got the possibility
Gerhold.
of this bill, how likely
Well,
to pass.
yeah, we're up against some extremists that sign on to this one. This one will be hard to fight. You'd have to get ACLU, legislative LSA, and protest and say it violates Supreme Court ruling, federal law, and a business or a corporation has the right to decide who they do business with, and that the government can't force people to do business or spend their money or invest in corporations. You can't be forced to do business when you don't want to do business. That's been ruled by the Supreme Court already. So I think that this would be something that the basis to fight would be that it's an illegal bill. That would be my best advice if you're trying to fight it. I get, what do they call that? Non-germane? I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that interpretations of rulings from SCOTUS would invalidate that bill.
Mm. I wanted to ask Julie Biddle if she has any discussion items. We kind of had an email conversation.
Winshittle means shoemaker. Oh, sorry, Julie. I apologize. I'm sorry. I was reading the chat.
Is she actually gone now? Oh, no, you're still here. Was there anything you wanted to add? Okay. Any other discussion items from people? I know we covered a lot and we heard from some great people. We've got some things to think about. If there was something anyone wanted to bring up, it's open. Okay. I've updated all the dates of our meetings so that if you signed up for one Disability Caucus meeting, you're kind of signed up for all of them. And I hope that you're getting the email notifications when meeting time comes around. I guess I'll look for doing a couple of different action items related to these legislation things that we've been. Thanks for all the links here, Deb. Um, So take a look at that, and if there's anyone that wants to help with the social media aspect of action items and getting the word out, please let me know about that. Always looking for some volunteers to help with little things that just make everything go along a little bit better. And especially if I forget that there's something going on and that I should be making a post about. Having a couple minds think about it is always good. So unless we have anything else, I'm basically ready to adjourn for tonight. So thank you so much for coming in. Our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.